We are learning new information about the truck driver that authorities say is connected to a disturbing human trafficking and smuggling case in San Antonio. His name is James Matthew Bradley Jr. He's charged with knowingly transporting undocumented immigrants. At least 10 people died after being found in a sweltering tractor trailer he was driving. Dozens of others hospitalized or getting medical treatment now. And he faces up to life in prison or the death penalty if convicted. Texas Congressman Will Hurd has called the situation sickening. He joins us now. Congressman, thanks for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me on.
I mean, you've probably read these reports that we're hearing about people talking about being packed in there, trying to get some air, banging, trying to get the driver's attention. It sounds like a desperate situation. How in the world do you stop it from happening again?
Well, this is an example. When this kind of loss of life happens, no matter where you're from, it's heartbreaking. But this is an example of how the drug trafficking organizations and the kingpin human smugglers have a complete disregard for life. We need to increase the amount of intelligence on these organizations in Mexico. There's 19 criminal organizations that are operating there. We need to treat them the way we treat chasing terrorists in places like Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, and we should be working closer with our Mexican partners to stop this before it gets to our borders. But we also need to make sure that we have a smart border where we're using technology in order to detect this kind of activity and stop it from happening.
Yeah, let's pick off a couple of those things. You talked about the drug cartels. One of the men apparently tells the story that there was a specific cartel who was engaged in one leg of this trip, taking hundreds of dollars from people to get across the river to get to the truck initially. He also talked about the fact that corrupt local police and authorities in Mexico were paid off along the way to turn a blind eye to what was going on. You talked about cooperation with Mexican officials. How does that work? How well is that going?
Sure. So we got to remember, and I think the nationalities of the folks that were in the truck have not been identified or put out in public, but they are unlikely have been from Mexico. So this journey started before, started outside of Mexico. So we got to talk about Mexico's southern border. It's about 200 miles with Guatemala, and we should be working with them on helping them secure their border. But there's folks at every level of law enforcement, from judges, prosecutors, people that run jails, where we need to improve the quality and their processes and how they operate in order to make sure that there's a rule of law in our southern neighbor. There's a number of organizations that we do work with. The Mexican Navy is one of the premier organizations where we have groups that are vetted and we share intelligence with. Growing those kinds of organizations are important, but this also starts with making sure that, I spent 9.5 years as an undercover officer in the CIA. I chased terrorists all around the world, stopped nuclear weapons proliferators, and it starts with having good intelligence. And we need to increase the amount of intelligence and what we're collecting on kingpin human smugglers and these drug trafficking organizations.
What do you want people to get from this story? I mean, what was your reaction when you heard it? Because a lot of times people don't feel a connection. They don't understand the situation. They don't get what these people have suffered. How do you get through to them about how outrageous this situation is? These are people who were, most of them, seeking a better life, maybe doing something illegal, but they were given promises. They thought they'd be safe, and that was definitely not the case.
Well, I'm from South Texas, and the South Texas heat is pretty unbearable, even when you're in an air-conditioned car. Imagine being in a metal box with no AC, and then imagine that you're a mother or a father who thinks that the only thing that you can do to improve the life of your 15-year-old son or daughter is to put them on this harrowing journey. How do we address the root causes in those countries where these parents are making the decisions in order to send their children this way?
Is part of the trouble here sanctuary cities, the attractive magnets and things that exist on this side of the border?
I think there are a number. The people are coming here because they want to have a better life, and so I think there's things that we can do on fixing our broken immigration system. If we need to enforce our laws. If there is no consequence to a bad behavior, that bad behavior is going to continue. So we got to start by enforcing our law. But we also, it's 2017, we can have an immigration system that's based on market demands and needs. And if you can streamline that process, it's better to come here legally than illegally.
Yeah, and we salute the folks who take that very long, arduous process as well, because that can take years and years, even if you do it the right way. Congressman Will Hurd, thank you very much for your time. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
Okay, very